All Cooper CPAs, located in the heart of East Nashville, offer a wide variety of tax services for individuals and businesses. Contact them at 615-257-0646 and visit their website, allcooper.com, for a full list of services.
Talkapolis, the social media TV network for your city.
And welcome back, everybody, to Political Soup. Joe Williams, Crom Carmichael, the man with a plan and the answers. And we have talked a lot on Political Soup, Crom, about the Affordable Health Care Act, which is euphemistically, I'll say, called Obamacare. And, you know, the doggone thing was the bill itself was 2,200 pages. Folks claim they read it in 4 days or 2 days or whatever. 20+ thousand pages of regulations
and still
since.
Coming.
And they're still writing them. And now that we are all the way into this, and what was an act has become a law, now the folks inside the government are going, well, we've got this problem. Are we surprised by that?
Well, it's Catherine Sebelius, who is the head of Health and Human Services. She testified before Congress, and she's trying to blame Republican governors who'd said that they didn't want to set up an exchange for the problem.
Including our own governor.
Yeah, including our own governor, and who did the right thing by not agreeing to set up an exchange. In our governor's case, he had sent a list of questions to Catherine Sebelius's office to get some clarification to help him make the decision, and he never got any answers back because they don't know what the answers are.
Imagine that.
Now you've got this, as you've mentioned earlier, you've got 20,000 plus pages of regulations on top of a 2,200 page bill. And now you have about half the country, the states have said, I'm not going to set up an exchange, so the federal government has to do it, which puts the burden on the federal government to do it correctly, which, of course, I will tell you, there's no question in my mind but that they will fail. Now, what you have is you've got Democrats who are now running around saying, well, nobody knew that at the time. Well, heck, no Republican voted for the bill because they said it's a really stupid bill. And so no Republican, I want to say that again. And a lot of times Republicans do things that are dumb, but in this case, they said, this is a really bad bill, we're not going to vote for it. So what you have is you now have Rockefeller, who's a Democrat from West Virginia. You now have Backus, who's a Democrat from Montana, both of whom voted for the bill, who are now saying, using these terms, they're saying this is a train wreck. These are Democrats saying it's a train wreck. And it is.
Here's my question. Surely Ms. Sebelius knew that there was going to be at least one or two states who were not going to set up an exchange. Why was at least the business model, the groundwork, already in place to roll this out? And I guess where I'm headed here is, you know, in the businesses that I've worked in, when you've got a major project like this, if you mess up this bad, you're polishing up the resume and trying to find another job.
Well, Joe, government doesn't do an effective, efficient job of doing anything that it tries to do. Medicare is fraught with fraud. Medicaid is fraught with fraud. When they set these things up, it'll be a disaster. It will be expensive. According to Rush Limbaugh, if you want to apply for a subsidy, you have to fill out a 61-page form to apply for a federal subsidy under Obamacare. 61 pages. Now, here's an article right here where they're saying that there was $40 billion in the budget to help small businesses buy coverage. You know how Obama keeps talking about I'm helping small business? So far, it's so complicated to apply for it and to get it, 1% of the money's been spent. 1%. Now, then you go over here where part of the Small Business Act was that you were going to have it said in the bill that small businesses would have multiple choices. Well, you're going to get a choice of one. So, and that's now what Catherine Sebelius has said, because they're going to have it'll be a disaster trying to set up one choice. Imagine what it would be if they'd set up two
choices or three.
and then you have the part where they said that the federal government would pick up the cost of pre-existing conditions. Well, they budgeted $5 billion to subsidize it, and now they're turning people away because 135,000 people have already sopped up all the money. And so this was a really, really poorly thought out bill that was jammed through only because the Democrats were determined to get it through. And it's even made worse by the fact that Scott Brown won the election for the Senate, which meant that the House had to go back and actually approve the Senate bill as it was written with no changes. Because otherwise the Senate would have had a chance to filibuster any new bill. And so the House had to vote for the Senate bill that was passed that nobody thought would become law, because nobody thought that Scott Brown would win the Senate seat in Massachusetts.
Well, surprise, unintended consequences.
And so now we have a mess, and now the Democrats, as is their case, they're now trying to blame Republicans who A, didn't vote for it, and who B, a lot of state governors are saying, I don't want to participate.
One other note that, and I didn't get to share this with you before, and I'm going to withhold the company name because I can't remember which one it was, but one of the national movie theater chains announced last week and has already started cutting all their employees, including their managers, to 29 hours a week.
Okay.
The big scream from the employees has been, you just cost me 25% of my pay.
Right.
So I'm taking a 25% pay cut.
Right.
It's easier to do that than to try to meet the requirements and the costs of health care if they stay.
The two numbers, 29 and 49.
Yeah.
29 hours, 49 employees. Obama says I want to grow jobs. When companies reach 49, the cost of going from 49 to 50 is absolutely immense. So my guess is that when they get to 49, they're going to either have to, they'll have to grow 20 or 30 employees. They'll have to need 20 or 30 employees to go to the next one, because they're not going to hire just one. And so we're only beginning to see just what a travesty the bill was.
So it sounds like it's going to grow, well, it'll grow small business because you can't afford to be anything over 49. So you'll just open another business.
Well,
hopefully.
either that or you cut a lot of employees back to 29 hours. Now, and by the way, if you cut them back to 29 hours, you're not having to provide them insurance at all. So they don't count against your 49. So that's and you know, it's
crazy.
And when they say it's the law of unintended consequences,
yep,
they might not have intended it, but it was completely predictable. Just completely predictable, which is why, by the way, Congress regularly exempts itself from bills they pass, because they recognize that if they had to live under the law, that it would actually have a negative effect on them.
And you know, I got to be honest.
And by the way, they exclude themselves from Obamacare. Yeah,
that's the one part. If it is so doggone good, Mr. President, if it is so doggone good, Ms. Pelosi, if it's so doggone good, Ms. Blackman.
No, wait a second. Marcia voted against it.
Well,
she voted against it.
What I'm saying is, if it's so doggone good, why is there not an uproar in Congress, Ms. Blackman, to put all of Congress and the legislative, the judicial, and the executive branches of our government under the same thing they expect the people of the country to live under?
I think there was a law passed a few years ago that says that when Congress passes an act, it has to live by the same laws. And the problem with that is that when that happened, because it wasn't a constitutional amendment, a law passed in a future legislative session could say, well, it doesn't count in this case.
That's the part that burns my bottom side.
Yeah, you bet.
But
that's it.
Who am I? I'm one guy, and this is the guy with all the answers. You know, I'm just the poor working stiff.
There you go.
He believes that too. That's what I love about Crumb. He believes almost anything I tell him. All right,
there you go.
We're going to close out this section, and when we come back, I promise you, our next segment will be a lot of fun. You want to talk about seeing both sides of a coin when maybe you don't want to, and thanks to our man Aaron, we are going to pull out something special to close out with. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us on Political Soup.